Have you ever felt held back from pursuing something you felt called to do because you're afraid of failing? If this resonates with you, you are not alone. And today's episode is especially for you. I'm your host, Peggy Easterling. This is the Mindset School podcast. Hold on. Today, we are tackling a giant hurdle that looms at large many of our lives: the fear of failure. Welcome to a new season in our lives. We are on a mission to demolish the arguments that have kept us from taking our next step towards true Christian authenticity. Are you ready to tear down those self-protective masks that are holding you back in life, in business, in relationships? It's about mindset, but more specifically, learning to keep our minds set on Christ, regardless of circumstance. This is the Mindset School podcast. I'm your host, Peggy Easterling. Let's be real, okay? Are you ready? Let's go. Are you like me? Like you have been held back for too long. You have let time pass in your life and pass you by. And you're not getting any younger. Okay. I mean, really, every day has purpose. Every day has meaning. And time seems so much more valuable than it did just a few years ago. Yet, I find myself at times wasting time. And sometimes I am just wasting time because I'm avoiding things out of fear. And sometimes that fear is a fear of failure. Now, I have redefined the word failure since I started my entrepreneurship journey. And I encourage you to just stop wherever you are. Whether you're on a treadmill and you're walking along, treading along, you don't have to stop your feet, just stop your mind. Whatever you're doing, maybe you're driving in your car, I encourage you to just contemplate and give space for just a moment on how you've defined the word failure. Because if you're like I was just a few years ago, failure means it wasn't perfect. Failure means you didn't do A+ work. There's a concept in entrepreneurship I keep hearing over and over and over. And it's the concept of C+ work. What does that mean, C+ work? Well, think of it this way. Do you think Michael Jordan, the very first time he picked up a basketball, he did A+ work with his fundamentals? Did he fumble? Did he not really dribble well? Could he do a slam dunk? Think of your favorite musician. Do you think the very first time they sing a note, it was perfection? No, there was a season of learning and growing. And so failure is not practicing to get better. Whenever I went to school to get my degree in psychology from Liberty University, I gave it 100%. I was terrified and completely fearful after so many years of not going to college to go back to school and to finish my degree. And I had not done that for so long. I knew that whenever I was in high school and when I did some college right out of high school, that I had some success. And I'd even when my kids were very small, taken a few courses. But I was terrified because it had been years since I had taken any classes. And I was a little older now. Lots of hair color and coloring up the gray hairs already occurring. And so it was so challenging for me to overcome that fear of failure to even try to go back to school. I had wanted to do that for years. It was a desire that was burning within me. It was during that time when the whole country was dealing with a pandemic that I really reshifted my focus. And I'm like, I am going for it. It is time. This unsettling that I have within me anyway, I really want this season of my life to have purpose. I want this season of my life to have meaning. And that drive within me to do exactly what I felt like God had called me to for so long, that drive finally, I did it sweaty. As I tell my mindset schoolgirls, we've got to do it sweaty. And I went and I enrolled in school. I left my corporate management job on a Friday and I started school on a Monday. And it was time. And I was terrified to log in and get in here and do the work and seeing all the work that I had to do. It felt like such a huge obstacle. But as I began day by day, prayer by prayer, trusting God, walking through it, I am so grateful for that season of my life where I was willing to take action in a direction that I felt God was leading me to. I did not do it perfectly, by no means, by no means. But I am so grateful that I did because it's led me here today. It's led me to be the coach that helps women overcome. It's led me to this space. And I'm so grateful for the journey. But if I had let the fear of failure grip me and hold me back from all of these things, I wouldn't be able to see the ripples. Failure is not what we've defined it as. Sometimes we think we're being a perfectionist. We think, I'm a perfectionist, so that's why I'm not doing that yet. And I want to say that a lot of times when we're defining ourselves as a perfectionist, what we really are is a procrastinator. Because to be a perfectionist, you have to be perfecting something. And really, we're not perfecting anything because we haven't even started. We haven't even began to learn the fundamentals of the thing that God's calling us to. We haven't even taken any action toward that goal because of the fear of failure. This concept that I share all the time in the Mindset's called do it sweaty. That means fear is going to come, but we have to take action anyway. And the beautiful thing about our minds when we do, we receive confirmation that it's okay. We're going to be okay on the other side of it. We tried. We may or may not have gotten the result that we were looking for. But either way, we learn and we grow through the process. There's a great story in the Bible that's an example of this concept. Matthew 14:22. I'm going to set the scene for you. What has just happened is Jesus has fed the 5,000. So miracles have just happened. And then Jesus immediately makes his disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him while he's dismissing the crowds. He's telling them, I'll be there. And then Jesus goes up on the mountain by himself to pray. And then evening came, he's there alone, and the boat it's drifted away. The waves have taken the boat away out into the sea. And then it says in verse 25, it was around the fourth watch of the night. And if you're like me, the fourth watch of the night is around the time the hot flashes start, around 3 to 6 a.m. And around this time is when Jesus came out onto the sea and began to walk on the water. And the disciples saw him and they got immediately scared. They were immediately fearful. And they said, "It's a ghost." And they cried out in fear. And Jesus spoke, saying, "Take heart. It's I. It's me. Hey, y'all, it's me. Don't be afraid," he said. And then Peter answered him. And Peter says, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And then Jesus said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and he walked on the water and walked to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, it says in verse 30, he was afraid and he began to sink. And then he cried out. Y'all, here he is. He's walking out to Jesus. He takes his eyes off. He starts to notice the wind. And it's funny that it says he saw the wind here, because can you see wind? I don't know. I mean, I think you could see the waves crashing probably, but I don't know that I've ever seen wind unless there was a lot of dirt in it. But here he is, and he is crying out, "Lord, save me," because he began to sink. He took his eyes off of Jesus. He started focusing on the wrong thing. He started focusing on his circumstances around him. He started focusing on his fear. And that's when he began to sink. And he said, "Lord, save me." Immediately, Jesus reached out to his hand, took his hand, and said, "You of little faith, why do you doubt?" And then he got in the boat, and the wind ceased. And those in the boat worshiped him, saying, it says, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Let's go back. I want to take note of a few things in this story and in this circumstance. Did Peter fail? Did Peter fail? Now, Peter's goal was to walk to Jesus. Did Peter step out of the boat? Yes. Did Peter take some steps? Yes. Did Peter get back in the boat? Yes. So was Peter a failure? No. But I bet there are people who read this story and say Peter failed. If Peter's goal was to journey with Jesus, he got farther than anyone else because he was willing to step out. I want you to realize, if we're defining failure and fear of failure, the disciples that were not even willing to get out of the boat at all, or even see the opportunity to do so, that is more a failure. Peter was the one who failed the least. Even though we might look at this story and say that Peter failed, he got farther than anyone. How much do you think his faith in Jesus grew that day? Knowing that he could trust him, that even if he stepped out, he could trust that he would be right there to pick him up and grab his hand, that he could cry out and God would be right there. How reassuring is that to know that as we step towards our goals, that Jesus's character, the character of God, is to meet us right where we are and help us, even if we get our focus wrong. He's right there. I just want to encourage someone listening today. You've got your eyes unfocused. You've been looking at the wrong thing. and you're afraid that your life has so much failure and you don't want to take any more chances. You've been living small and behind the radar. But I want to encourage you to change your mindset around failure because God has a call on your life. He's called you to something bigger. He's called you to something bolder, and he's asking you to step out of the boat. There are some obstacles in your mindset, and there's help available for those obstacles. There are people who can help you get through those obstacles. But it's time to step out. It's time to stop living small just because you feel that you could fail. If you don't succeed the first time you try, the beautiful thing is that he's right there. He's right there. I am the person that I am today because I stepped out of the boat. What is that boat that God's calling you out of today? What steps does he want you to take? How have you already stepped out of the boat and you're sinking, but you haven't yet called out to the name of the Lord? Is it time? Is it time today to call on the name of the Lord, to grab his hand, and to let him take you safely to shore? When we step out of the boat, we build this resilience. We build this trust, this faith. Our faith grows. Our mindset shifts when we begin to put our faith and trust in God and know he's got us. 2 Timothy 1:7 says this, "For God gave us a spirit not to fear, but of power and love and self-control." We are empowered by the Holy Spirit not to avoid failure, but to rise from it. We grow from the experience of stepping out of our boat. Failure is never allowing yourself the mindset to grow and learn and be all who God's created you to be in this season of life. This season, he's not called us to quit. It is time we stand in spiritual authority and be exactly who God's calling us to be. It's time we surrender our will and our fear of failure to him. He's there. He's ready to lend a hand, and he's ready for us to step out of our boat. Thank you for joining me today on our journey towards Christian authenticity and a Christ-centered mindset. Remember, the masks that we wear not only hide our true selves, but also keep us held back, living small in life, in business, and in relationships. As we wrap up, I invite you to take a crucial step towards your breakthrough. I created the Breakthrough Quiz just for you. Head over to themindsetSchool.net/quiz and dive in to discover a guide to move you closer to your authentic self and renewing your mind God's way. Until next time, let's be real, okay?